show is a night before New Year's Eve. What better time than to do our New Year's resolutions? We have picked 12 college basketball teams that might need a little help, might need a little something. These are not the 12 best teams in the country, but these are 12 teams that we are fascinated by collectively as a group here at the Field of 68, and we're going to fix them. We're going to become better versions of these 12 teams by the end of this hour-long episode. My name is Greg Waddell. I'm joined by Rob Dauster, by Randolph Childress, RC himself. We are brought to you by Bet Rivers. You can find us on the Field of 68 YouTube channel. Click subscribe if you're watching us there. Did you guys have a good Christmas, first of all, Rob? This is the first time I've seen you. Everything good?
Yeah, really good Christmas. Kids had a ton of fun. There's toys all over the place. They're already losing their minds. They're already telling themselves, I'm bored. I have nothing to do. We just bought you all these presents. But I think that's kind of how it goes, right? That's kind of how it goes on the holidays.
And you got a four-legged gift, Rob, right? There's a furry friend.
We got the kids.
What'd you name him?
It came with a name. It's Cody. He's terrified of everything still. So I'm hoping that with the new year, we're gonna get kind of a new set of intestinal fortitude with this dog. So maybe we can go for a walk without it freaking out every time that a car drives by. That's my goal right now. That's my New Year's resolution, is to get my dog to the point that it can go outside.
I mean, in Cody's defense, imagine being unwrapped or unboxed at the Dauster household. I would be terrified too. Okay, it is what it is. RC, it's good to see you. You have a good holiday?
I had a great one, man. I'm broke, but it was fun. Everybody else enjoyed it. So once I pay off this credit card bill, I'll be happy.
I think that's how it's supposed to work, my friend. All right. So as I alluded to, we've got 12 teams that we are fascinated by. These span many of the major conferences in college basketball. We're going to jump around. There's really no rhyme or reason to these teams other than we picked these teams. We hand chose these teams as teams that we think could be very, very good if a certain thing got a little bit better. That's where the New Year's resolutions come in. So we're going to alternate. We're going to kind of hop around. First up on the list, we're going to the Big East. We're going to the Xavier Musketeers, and Rob Dauster has their resolution.
So first and foremost, I think that what we've seen out of Xavier this season has been really, really promising, right? I think that their win over West Virginia is going to carry some legs. I think that beating up on Cincinnati in a rivalry game was impressive to me. They got that win over Seton Hall. They got that win over Florida. And their 3 losses are by a combined, let me do a little bit of math here, 15 points. And all 3 of those teams are top 20 teams on KenPom. So I think in a vacuum, Xavier's had a really, really successful start to the season. And it's been nice to see Sean Miller get out there and kind of implement some of these new things offensively that he maybe picked up during his year off from listening to guys like us talk on the Field of 68. But when you think of Sean Miller's teams, when you think of what he was the first time he was at Xavier, when you think of what his team was when he was at Arizona, it started with the defense, right? It was always elite defensively, and then they're going to figure it out on the offensive end of the floor. This year has been the exact opposite. So I think his New Year's resolution is to find a way to get this team to guard. And that sounds basic and that sounds simplistic, but when it comes down to it, this is a top 10 team on KenPom in adjusted offensive efficiency. They are outside the top 80 in adjusted defensive efficiency. And when you cannot guard at a high level, it's hard for you to make a deep run in March. It's hard for you to find a level of success and compete in the league. Maybe not as good as the Big East overall as what it's typically been, but the New Year's resolution is it's got to be something on the defensive end of the floor. And I think it's just as simple as find a way to get successive stops.
It's been weird with him knowing Sean and knowing what he's about, and then seeing his team come out and then see them struggle defensively. I mean, they're giving up a ton of points, and he seems to be dumbfounded by it because we know he's putting in the work and emphasizing it. And defense is something that you expect to get better, but it's just not something that he just seems to be like I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, not literally being like I don't think he wants to call out his guys. But if this team is going to compete in the Big East, and I think there'll be a lot of teams, that struggled early, that unfortunately for this, Xavier team, I think come conference play won't look the same as they did early in the season, like a la Creighton. I think as they getting healthy now, getting back into conference play, and also Villanova is one of those teams. So they need to figure that out quickly. If not, then they can find themselves in trouble come conference play. They can flat out score. I mean, on the offensive end, they got great balance. They'll figure that out. I'm not worried about that. But in that league, you got to guard. I mean, it's it's the Big East, and you're going to have to figure it out. I mean, I think the teams that we expected to be good early are going to be better later.
Weird. The game that really stood out to me was the game against Georgetown, right? When they put up 102 points, and that was about 10 days ago now.
And they gave up 90?
And they gave up 89 to Georgetown. And Sean afterwards came out, and I don't have the quote right in front of me at the moment, but he came out and kind of ripped his guys at a game where they put up 102 points. Like we're not going to do anything if we can't guard. And Greg, I think a little bit of it is just kind of structural with that roster, right? Like when you have Jack Nungy and when you have Zach Fremantle, and those are two of your 3-4 best players, right? Two guys that are all conference talented. You got to have them on the floor. I don't know how you create a team that's going to be elite defensively with those two guys on the floor together. So it might just be the kind of thing where you do the best you can. And in the moments where you definitely need a stop, then you get your best 5 defensively and put them out on the floor. But I think that's kind of what you have to do.
The thing though, that's concerning to me is that sometimes you don't want to be zone. You don't want to be a zone guy. Like you want a man-to-man, but your personnel dictates you just can't be a great man-to-man defensive team. And when you're not, I mean, people think of zone just standing around, and it's not. You can have an active zone that eliminates, movement and isolation and things like that. So, I mean, a lot of coaches just come hell or high water, just won't do it. And sometimes your personnel dictates you because you're going to be in trouble if you got to. That's what we talked about with Kentucky. You're going to be in trouble if I got to start mixing and matching lineups just to get a certain aspect of the game done, unless you're talking late game final situation. But throughout the game, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to put this group in for defense, and then I'm going to put this 5 in because I want to score. And then this point, I mean, that's a tough way to do it.
We talk about it a lot, right? Teams that don't, where their best 5 offensively and their best 5 defensively isn't the same 5. Like that's concerned. We talked about, it was Purdue last year. We talked about it a lot with, right?
Yep.
And you couldn't have Trevion Williams and Zach Edey on the floor at the same time, which meant that your best 5 offensively had a different core lineup than your best 5 defensively, which is, it's a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah, when I look at this Xavier team personnel-wise, the thing I would push back on with the comparison to Purdue is that last year with Purdue, I felt like you could very comfortably go through and pick a different 5 than whatever 5 was on the floor at any given time and be like, oh, well, this would give you this instead. What's Painter doing? With this group, I don't feel like they're that deep. And yes, they're talented, but I feel like once you get down to the 6, 7 spot on this roster, you're kind of like, I mean, the top 5 are the top 5, right? You want Fremantle on the floor. You want Nungy on the floor. You want Sule Boom on the floor. But even in this transfer portal era that we're in, like Jack Nungy came from Iowa. I mean, he's never been on a good defensive team. Sule Boom, he's never been on a good defensive team. Like these guys are who they are. So when I look at the idea of these resolutions, honestly, like I think you're right, Rob. The resolution would obviously be, let's get some defense. I just feel like that's almost like a Christmas miracle being gifted to them if they suddenly start defending. I don't know that this team's going to be the one to turn that around.
How about this? I'll give you this, and then we can move on to the next team because producer Trevor is already in our ear yelling at us that we're going too long. To me, the resolution is get Desmond Claude and Cam Kraft up to the point where you can get them 20 to 25 minutes a night, and you feel comfortable having them on the floor. You get to 7 or 8 deep, and I think those two guys are they are what allow you to kind of go with like a 4 kind of wing, 4 perimeter player lineup. And it would force one of Fremantle or Nungy to the bench if those guys come along. We heard in the offseason, Desmond Claude could be a guy that was NBA potential, right? We heard about how good Cam Kraft was in their kind of summer workouts. So get those two guys up and running to the point where they are legitimate rotation potential starters at the Big East level by the end of the season. And I think we're having a different conversation about Xavier.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, let's stay in the Big East. RC is going to bring us this one for the Villanova Wildcats. What do you got?
Man, I mean, maybe Obamacare or a time machine. I don't know which one you want to do. You want to fast forward it forward, or you want Obamacare to get them through? Like, you can't tell me scary. They're a scary team in a sense going forward because, again, they struggled early. I mean, the loss to Michigan State early. They lost to Iowa State, Portland, and who's for Oregon. 4 straight losses, and all of a sudden Cam comes back. Cam Whitmore comes back, and now it's 5 straight. it's consecutive streak going and stuff. So they've been playing significantly better. The question that I have is how good will this team be if and when Justin Moore comes back? Because he was their best player. If he comes back at any point in this season, offensively, they're similar to what they were last year. I mean, I think the only difference right now, they're probably shooting 34% from three. They shot 36 a year ago, but they're right around the same 42, 43. They're going to spread you out. We know their style of play. And even with Kyle Neptune there, it's the same Jay Rice system. Not much change. He's added his own little flavor to it, but it's still the same format and system. And I don't see if this team gets healthy as they're playing right now, they're already better. But if Justin Moore comes back, then you remember this was the bully of the league for quite some time. I know Providence kind of came in and not to your liking. I know we're not gonna get on this UConn. I'm not even getting into that today. But this is a team you won't want to play, come late in the year.
Well, yeah. See, it's ironic that Villanova just played UConn and Xavier's about to play UConn tomorrow, and we have this new Top Dogs T-shirt available in the merch store. So make sure you go and you pick that Top Dogs T-shirt up if you're watching this as a UConn fan. But I think. So for me, there were two resolutions that I was gonna have if I had ended up with Villanova. One was to take a little bit more HGH to try to get these injuries helpful and figured out a little bit quicker. And the other one is so you do that so you don't have to play Chris Arcidiacono as much. And I think that is the biggest issue right now. If you could tell me right now, RC Greg, think about this. You give me Cam Whitmore, you give me Caleb Daniels, you give me Brandon Slater, you give me Eric Dixon. Those four, that top four is as good as anybody in the Big East. That top four is as good as all but like 5, 6, 7 teams in the country. Then you throw in a healthy Justin Moore or a borderline healthy Justin Moore, even if it's 75% of Justin Moore, like that is a team that you're not going to want to face in March. So no. I think I know this is like the New Year's resolution show and we're supposed to joke and have fun with it or whatever, but like the biggest thing is just you got to wait. You got to be patient on this one if you're a Villanova fan. Hopefully by the time you get to February, they've done enough where they're in a position to make a run late, get a spot in the tournament, and then with that team, who knows what could happen.
You need a time machine or Obamacare, man. One or the other. You got to figure it out, or both.
I was hoping you were going to offer up the Parent Trap route, honestly. Can we get Ryan Arcidiacono in Chris's jersey and try to play that off? Because I push back on your concept here, Rob. I don't think those 4 players you mentioned are anywhere close to a top 6, 7 team in the country. I just don't. I think until this team gets a point guard, we're talking about like on a good day, 15 to 20 range, which is fine. That's a good enough team to make the NCAA tournament and maybe make some noise. But I don't see it. Like you think Villanova of the last 6 years, you think of great point guard play. This team is not going to have that even when Justin Moore comes back. So we'll see.
But they can flat out score it, and they're going to be hard to guard.
It's true. It's very true. Him. Stay the course, Wildcats. That's our message to you. Stay the course. All right. We're going to go to my country here. We're going to go to the Big Ten. I'll lead us off here. We got 3 Big Ten teams we're going to go through. The first on the list is the Michigan Wolverines. 0 quad 1 wins for the Michigan Wolverines this season. And I'm trying to stay in the realm of reality here. I would love to say just start making shots. I would love to say get healthy. I would love to say all those things, but I'm going to stay with something that could actually happen, a tangible thing that could happen. I would like Hunter Dickinson to cut all ties with his podcasting partner, Marty Mush. Okay? Because this guy, Hunter, man, I swear he's capable of being a first-team All-American no matter who he's playing with. He's that good. I really don't think there's anything that he can't do that the best centers in the country can do. But we're now a season and a half into dangerously close territory to just condemning this guy as like, if he's the best player on your team, you're in trouble. And last year we heard Hunter make excuses about it. He pointed fingers at Caleb Houston, said he needed to get ready. He pointed fingers at Devontae Jones, said this isn't the Sun Belt anymore. This year, who's he pointing fingers at? He's on a podcast with his co-host, Marty Mush, saying Zach Edey's just big. He's not good. Saying he's going to drop 40 on a team he goes out and loses by 22. You saw Armando Bacot stuff him in a locker for 40 minutes in that North Carolina game. So I would like that. I would like Hunter to maybe have a little dose of reality, look in the mirror, realize that he needs to carry this team. due to depth, due to injury, due to just talent level. He needs to be the first team All-American that he can truly be to drag this team back to the NCAA tournament. Rob, how do you feel about that resolution?
I think that there's a lot of truth in it. I think that the idea that players don't have enough time to be able to go out and have lives outside of sports is something that is a little bit overblown, right? I don't have any issue. I didn't have an issue with JJ Redick doing a podcast when he was playing. I don't have an issue with Draymond Green doing his show. I don't have an issue necessarily with Hunter Dickinson doing his podcast. The issue becomes when you use it as a platform to kind of go after other people, right? Just more or less as a place where you're going to talk a little bit of shit and then you're not backing it up. That to me, that's where it's kind of like, all right, dude, look, you know what? You said that you were going to beat Arizona State by 30 and you lost by 20, right? At some point, you kind of have to back it up if you're going to keep getting on that platform and running your mouth. And outside of, what was it, a 2-week stretch in March last year, when has this Michigan team, as it's been Hunter Dickinson's team, been anything more than just like, yeah, they're pretty good. They're all right. They should be in the tournament. Have they? Greg, you watch them more than anybody else,
No.
Greg, have they?
No, they have not. And look, they were picked to be one of 2 teams to win the league last year with Purdue preseason. Never came close. This year, they were in that range with Illinois at the beginning of the season, Indiana at the beginning of the season as a true national contender. Not even close. They're on the wrong side of the bubble right now. My biggest issue is just it's. And I love that he does the podcast. Genuinely, I think all players should go out and, do whatever you want with your brand. That's fine. My problem is I genuinely believe that's playing some effect on his mentality of how he approaches games. He just has gone back-to-back games with single-digit shot attempts. That didn't happen once all of last season.
But is that his fault? Because most bigs need help getting the ball. So if he's only getting single-digit shot attempts, then I'm looking at what's going on, because we coming in thinking he's the best player. So if he's your best player, bigs need help getting the ball. He's not a play on a perimeter. Yeah, he can make a 3-point shot. He's not a play on a perimeter ball. Guy. He's a guy, get on the block, get it to him, and then let him go to work. So if he's only getting single digits, then there needs to be a little kumbaya amongst Michigan and say, hey, look, let's run the off. It's no different than let's be honest, that's what turned Carolina around. You start saying, hey, let's make sure Armando gets some touches. You guys are spot on what you said before. I got no problem with you talking. Just make sure you hold yourself accountable and you start pointing like what I'm not doing first. And I get it, and I'll defend him in that. If he's only getting 9 shot attempts, then everybody in that locker room needs to look around and be like, he needs to be getting at least 15 shots a game. If they're going to win,
the only thing I would say to that, RC, is given the other players on that roster, like who else are you going to guard, right? Like if you're, let's use a North Carolina example, right? If you are going to sell out to try to stop Armando Bacot, that means that you're going to leave one of RJ Davis or Caleb Love or Pete Nance just kind of all alone. I get it if you do it with Leaky Black. You're going to get burned if you do that with RJ, Caleb, and Pete Nance. If we're leaving Terrence Williams all by himself, if we're leaving Doug McDaniel all by himself, if we're just not guarding Kobe Buffkin or Jet Howard, like how concerned are you as a coach going into those games where you say, we can't leave these guys? Other than Jet Howard, is there anybody on that team that you're really that worried about?
No, again, I'm not worried about them doing it, but taking open shots, they can make enough of those to make you guard him. And he's good enough he's just not getting enough touches. They're sitting in his lap. He's a hell of a passer. So if you cutting and moving away, you just can't throw it to him and stand. But I think there's more. This team will get better. I just think, I thought they tried a little better in the Carolina game. We know Carolina's a load. When they're motivated and dialed in, they're as good as anybody. That's why they were preseason number 1. Whether people think they deserve it or they don't, they're good. They're a damn good team. So there's no embarrassment, but they showed me a little pause in that.
Yeah, and here's the truth. Carolina turned things around when we started calling them soft here on the field of 68 after dark 2 years in a row. So now we got Greg out here calling out Hunter Dickinson. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to see this because Hunter sees everything. And you better watch out because the next time he comes out there, he's going to go off for 35 and 15. I don't even know who they're playing next. He's going to get 35 and 15, and he's going to sit there in his mind and be, that's for you, G Wizzy. That's what
we should send you this game, Greg.
Remember when you doubted me, Gregory?
You
Remember when you doubted me?
Listen, I would love to see the man get more points in a game than he gets elbows thrown at Caleb Love. I would love to see it. I'm just saying. I mean, we'll see. Let's stay in the Big Ten, Rob. We're going your way next. The Purdue Boilermakers, the #1 team in the country. Rob, what do they need to change for New Year's?
Paint crew. With the paint crew, that's in the merch store, by the way. Field68.shop. Go check it out. It's a nice tape. Look at that. Look at that. It's a nice design. Shout out to Nick who designed that for us.
That's a nice one.
Purdue's tough because I feel like at this point they've kind of maxed out what they are and what they can be, if that makes sense, right? Like so much of what they do comes via the system that they run, the offense that they run, and the shots that get created out of Zach Edey's touches and what happens when defenses have to focus on him, right? So in that sense, it's kind of I kind of feel like the New Year's resolution is to just keep sticking with it, right? I know that they've had a couple of games recently that have not necessarily been dominant, right? Whether it's the OT game at Nebraska, I think that was their Big Ten opener, right? Whether it was the game at home against Davidson on what was it, 2 weeks ago now. But I think the New Year's resolution is just keep doing what we do, right? I don't know if there's something that you need to change to make this team better than they actually are. I think that they are as good as they're going to get this season. I think that there might be a little bit more ceiling as Fletcher Loyer gets a little bit more consistent, and maybe as they start shooting. What are they shooting? 31% from three right now. I think those shots are eventually going to start going down. I think that they have too many guys that are better shooters than what they are currently putting up. So my New Year's resolution for Purdue is keep doing the shit that you're doing, right? Keep staying the course. Maybe you had a couple rough games. Maybe teams are starting to figure out, well, you know what? You still got the big fella down there. You still got Zach Edey in the post. He is such a problem to deal with. He's so, as Hunter Dickinson put it so eloquently, he's big. He's enormous. They're trying to get him off the block.
But is he good though, Rob? Is he good?
Zach Edey? Well, can you stop him? I mean, 23-12.
He's good. That's I was hoping you would say yes.
You know what? I know he's been the national player of the year, right? I know that he is averaging 22 and 12, but like it's only because he's 7'4" and he's super coordinated. He has great touch around the basket and he knows how to utilize his body and he knows how to seal people. And when you get the ball, he's now going strong to the rim, but it's only because he's big, right, Greg?
Right, man. Look, I look no further than the fact that Purdue is only shooting 31% from three this season. And they're still #1 in the country, and they're still undefeated with the wins they have. Like that's on paper, that shouldn't happen. The whole premise is you got to surround Edey with shooting. Theoretically, they've done that, but they're not making shots on the season. If you tally them up, they haven't gone in. Somehow it hasn't mattered because Edey has been that good. I'm with you. I think this team's really good. I do think, look, we saw their Big Ten opener. We were at Nebraska for that game that went to overtime. And Nebraska essentially, they were throwing 3 bodies at Edey every single time he touched the ball. And I don't think every team's going to do that. But essentially, Hoiberg just said, I don't care if anybody else gets a wide open shot. We're going to throw 3 guys at you. And the day that we saw that happen, Fletcher Loyer was fantastic. Braden Smith was a disaster. So if I could get anything else from them, it would be maybe a second complimentary guy to Fletcher that emerges. And I like Braden Smith on paper. I think he could be that. But I think this season really is going to come down to the guards.
I do kind of agree. But what I'm going to say is this. Fletcher Loyer is shooting 32.5% from three. That was a guy that came in with a reputation of being a shooter from the state of Indiana, right? I think that he is better than a 32.5% three-point shooter. Caleb First shot 42% from three last year. He's shooting 31% from three this year. Ethan Morton shot 44% from three last year. He's shooting 26% from three this year. Mason Gillis shot 42% from three last year. He missed 3 games. He only played 12 minutes against Nebraska. He got back. Played 12 minutes against Davidson. He didn't play against Nebraska. He played 31 minutes against New Orleans. He's a guy that this year shooting 36% from three. Last year he shot 42. So guys that made shots at a certain clip last year aren't making them at the same rate this year. They're still getting those good looks. Zach Edey's playing the best basketball of his entire life, and they're #1 in the country. They're shooting 31% from three. Like, keep doing what you're doing, Matt Painter. Like, it's going to work. Those shots are going to start going down, and if they don't, you're still awesome when you're missing. Why would you change?
Still winning.
Yeah,
still winning. It's tough to
spoke-
improve
Hey,
on number
hey,
one.
Greg. Hey, Greg Waddell. Can you do me a favor and can you get Brian Waddell on the phone? And tell him we got an NIL deal waiting for him for a paint crew
Absolutely.
t-shirt.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's my little bro. We can get him. Yeah, you're spoken like a true member of the paint crew, Rob Dauster. Maybe this is the year that Matt Painter finally breaks through. Field68.shop. You can get your own paint crew shirt, as well as a bunch of other good stuff like the Top Dogs UConn shirt we showed you earlier this episode. All right, final Big Ten team here. Producer Trevor, I hope, is going to like this one. We're going to the Illinois Fighting Illini. Daddy Brad's own. Show the shirt, Rob. Daddy Brad himself. Listen, Daddy Brad has had some tumultuous times in the last couple of weeks here. First, he called out Terrence Shannon. He gave the fart noise in the press conference about his effort. Then
All-time great press conference moment, by the way.
All-time great moment. Then Matthew Meyer hits the podium the next game and says that him and Daddy Brad don't see eye to eye. And essentially, Illinois looked pretty vulnerable in all of these games. Since that awesome win against Texas, the horns down win in Madison Square Garden, they've looked not so good, like a bubble team-ish. So here's my resolution. I would love to say that it's just as easy as maybe if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it to the media. Maybe that's where to start. But I'm going to go a personnel issue here because I want more Dane Danger. That's my New Year's resolution. I want to play Dane Danger a little more, and here's why. I think that going into this season, Brad Underwood said, we're going to be a positionless basketball team. We don't need a center. Kofi Coburn's gone. As good as he was, that's why we struggled in March. We're going to play 5 guys that can shoot, that can pass, that can handle, that can switch, all of this. And that was great for the first month of the season until Coleman Hawkins started really struggling. He's been really, really bad the last 5 games when Illinois has looked horrible. He's played 34 minutes a game over the last 5. He's shooting 18% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He's shooting 34% from the floor on 9 attempts per game, chipping in 3 turnovers for good measure. Before this, he was playing 26 minutes. He's jumped up to playing 34 minutes while shooting the ball that poorly, while not taking care of the basketball. And meanwhile, you've got this center on the bench who is playing roughly 12 minutes a game, but can get you 11 and 7 if he just plays 20 minutes. He's shooting 74% from the floor on the season. And I'm not saying Danger's a perfect basketball player, but I think it's time to scrap the concept of positionless basketball. Realize you have an asset that's a traditional center, and you know you can win with a guy like that. You've done it before in this conference. Let's go that route. Give me more Dane Danger. RC, you like that?
I no, because the reason it's not that I don't no, because you can't change and scrap everything you've been doing all year for one guy. That guy better be damn good, and he's talented, but is he worth doing that? If you try to scrap everything you're doing and go back to what you were last year, he ain't Kofi, so you can't make that comparison. But I agree, he needs to get more touches and play through him. You're gonna have to maybe try to figure out an offense when he's on the floor to get him out there. But that's hard to change everything they do. I'm more concerned about all the friction that seems to be going on. Like when you start doing that, even for coach, it was funny, but when you start doing that in the media and the players start coming out talking in the media, then it's much worse in the locker room. So my concern would be more about, is there something we're missing here or we're not talking about, more so than worrying about who's playing and who's not? Because this team is, I don't know if there's a team that we thought higher up that's taking a faster slide south than this team is right now. I mean, they're just not playing very well at all.
Yeah, I was going to say my resolution is go see a therapist.
Yes.
Like call BetterHelp.
Yeah, get Kumbaya or something. Start, you got to do something different.
Yeah, and we always knew that this was going to be a little bit of a possibility, right? You have a lot of big personalities in that room. You have a coach that coaches hard, right? Daddy Brad is going to coach you hard. It's not there's going to be a lot of tough love in that locker room. That's just kind of who he is. He's an old school guy. He comes from that Bob Huggins, Frank Martin kind of coaching tree, right? You know what you're going to get from Daddy Brad. You got to find a way to get along. You got to find a way to make it work, because when it works, we know how good they are. They smacked around, was it UCLA they beat earlier this year? They smacked around UCLA, right? So when it's good, it's good. But I think that it's been a while. They struggled at Maryland, right? They turned around and they probably should have lost that game against Texas at the Jimmy V. They were down by 10 in the second half. They kind of got a little bit lucky down the stretch. Jaden Epps made a couple of big shots. Terrence Shannon finally got going in overtime. I think that was the last time that we saw the Terrence Shannon get going. They played horrible against Penn State at home. They went out and they got a win against, I can't remember who it was. It was a bye game when Matthew Meyer came out and started cussing everybody out. Then they got utterly humiliated in the bragging rights game against Missouri, right? It got so bad that the Missouri fans that hate themselves on our chat, the guys from the 3-man weave, Kai and Jim, they hate themselves for being Missouri fans. Those guys were celebrating and partying. They were talking trash to producer Trevor. He's in Alina. They were talking trash to producer Trevor. That's how bad that it's gotten. Missouri fans have bragging rights on Illinois. You need a therapist, man. You guys got to come together. You got to find a way to make this thing work. You're too talented not to, right? In all seriousness, put your egos aside. Like if you're Terrence Shannon, right? Listen to what this guy's going to tell you, because I think the best case scenario for Terrence Shannon is Ayo Dosunmu. We saw what Ayo Dosunmu did under Brad Underwood. He's now playing for the Bulls. He's now he's going to end up having a nice little NBA career, right? Listen to him. Find a way to make it work. There's talent on this roster, and nobody is going to get what they want. NIL money, payday, sponsorships, NBA draft picks. You're not going to get that if the rising tide doesn't lift all ships. So come on, man, get along. It's a holiday season. Find a way to get along with each other.
They better hope that therapy works. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's
Daddy Brad. It's not crazy Uncle Brad. He's Daddy Brad. Listen to him.
It's therapy or the bench. Figure it out or sit your ass down. It's really not that complicated. It's gonna be one or the other. Somebody got to sit down. They just look like, I don't know what they pouting over, if it's the ball, what's going on, but you got to figure it out. Like this is they're too talented for this. Yeah.
I think my step just comes after therapy. We can try therapy. If after 2 weeks it's not fixed, give me Dane Danger, man. Get Hawkins on the bench.
I'm with you on that. I'll give you a little bit more.
All right, let's go. Let's go Big 12, boys. Rob's going to take us here. We're going to Mark Adams, Texas Tech, Red Raiders. What do you got, Rob?
Texas Tech. I don't know if this is going to be a controversial opinion. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me here. I don't know if Texas Tech fans are going to love me for this or not. But I think that it might be time for them to kind of go away from this no middle defense, right? Maybe your New Year's resolution is to play defense that might let people go middle sometimes. I think that one thing is teams have kind of figured out how to beat that style of defense, right? I think we're seeing a little bit of those issues when it comes to Baylor this season. I think we're seeing a little bit of those issues when it comes to Texas this season. I don't know how effective the no middle is now that it's kind of on tape what you need to be able to do. You got to have big wings. You got to have guys that can make control drives baseline. You got to force that help to pre-rotate, and then you find shooters on the weak side of the floor and create closeouts. That's how you beat the no middle defense. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard to do. You got some of the personnel. And I don't think at this point, to make that no middle defense work, you need to have utterly elite on-ball defenders. And I don't think that Texas Tech has utterly elite on-ball defenders. So I think that you need to kind of go away from that. And the other reason I kind of feel good about that is they haven't beaten anyone. I think maybe your New Year's resolution is go out and get a good win, right? Who have they beaten this year? I'm looking at the schedule right now. Louisville, Georgetown, and then a bunch of bye games, right? Yeah, I know that you kept it close with Creighton when Creighton was still good. And yeah, I know you hung with Ohio State, who actually looks like they might be a really good team. But Ohio State put 80 on you, right? 62 possession game. Creighton put 76 on you. We've seen that team struggle to score against defenses that are as bad as Nebraska. I think you got to go away from the no middle, and I think you need to find a way to actually beat a good basketball team at some point this season.
RC, what do you think?
The only concern that I heard early on was I think that they're more successful when they have size or as their wings and their guards. I thought a year ago having that size across the lineup, I just don't see. I think they got smaller guards this year, and it's just easier to throw over. And I mean, we talked about that. I think anything's about execution. More teams are doing it; they're seeing it more, and sometimes that helps you with your preparation against it. But again, they just like you said. My biggest concern is they hadn't beaten anybody yet. So we'll see what happens going forward. I don't question the team because I think they'll get better as the year goes on, but we'll have to see. I think the league itself is just tough. So There's no let up. We'll see in conference play, but they're going to need to be much better in conference play to have any shot. Because right now, when we start doing blind resumes, they wouldn't get in.
They wouldn't. They have what, a 9-point win over Nicholls State. They have a 7-point win over Eastern Washington. They beat Louisiana Tech by 10 or whatever it was. Like there's not a lot on that resume that would make you say anything more than, yeah, you know what, that's a Conference USA team right there.
Right. If we took away the name and we put that resume down there, we'd be like, oh, they got a lot of work to do. And that's okay to say. Let's see what comes out of this Christmas break. Like, a lot gets done over the Christmas holidays, practicing, health, everything included. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And it's not like they're not going to have opportunities in the Big 12. Everybody in that conference is at least top 52 in KenPom.
I was going to spin this the opposite direction, though. Like, can we get them in a different conference before they have to go through the gauntlet of the Big 12? Like, are we sure we really want to see this team play a bunch of top 50 teams after we've seen what they've done in their 2 opportunities so far? I don't know, man. I don't know that this is the year. And again, it's personnel more than anything. Like, and God bless Davion Harmon. We watched this guy for what seems like 6 years at this point, 3 different programs. I don't know that that's your guy. Pop Isaacs looks really promising. He's young. Again, maybe that's part of your point, Rob. Can you take guys who are in here for 1 year, their first year, trying to learn this defense and mold it into what you want it to be?
I think you can, but you need to have elite on-ball defenders. And like Pop, all respect to him. He's a really good player. He's a lot better than I thought he was going to end up being this year. He ain't an elite on-ball defender. And you know what's wild? Like, how much did we spend this offseason talking about Kerwin Walton and the importance that he was going to be for this team? He's like we're looking for him. The Walton family's New Year's resolution is going to be find Kerwin.
Yeah, he's on the side of a milk carton right now, right? That's not good. That's not where you want to be. All right, staying in this conference, let's go to RC, who has a resolution for Baylor. What do you got?
If I could be on the Baylor's behind the basket and just be like a relief pitcher calling them when they get jump shot happy and just tell them go to the bullpen. Like, you gotta give me something in the paint. Like, you just a sign. It ain't even a play. It's just going to the bullpen. They have to figure out a way to get some balance. I don't think the team is going to get much. I mean, their guard plays as good as any team in the country. They're not going to get much on the front line, with Bridges, but they're not going to get a lot of scoring out of those guys. When you got that kind of guard play, I get it. I mean, Keontae George's talent. I like to see his shot selection get a little better. But again, I think he's an elite talent. The guard play with, LJ Cryer and Adam Flagler. I mean, those guys they're big time. I don't have much to say. I think that their losses against UVA and Marquette is a telltale sign. Like, defensive teams, they got after them. Surprises me with the quality of their guard play. The Marquette was just a massive blowout. I never saw that coming. But again, it's Baylor. I'm never going to count them out. The only thing I just say is just a little balance being there. Just get the ball a little bit pink, not get so jump shot happy. I just think they're a team that just gets real jump shot happy, shoots it from all over, which they should. But if they can get a little bit more balance in their shot selection, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, to me, it's just improving the decision making a little bit, right? Like, I think that overall, this team is just a little bit flawed in how they're built. Like, I don't think Jalen Bridges is the guy that you want him to be, and I don't think that they necessarily have the right kind of 5-man. There's 2 different kinds of rim protection, right? There's a kind of rim protection that you get from an athlete like Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua, and there's rim protection that you get from Flo Thamba, who's just one of these dudes that's elite at just being in the way. And I think that's what you're getting from Flo. And that's fine. That is what it is. I think that your 5 and your backcourt are what you want them to be. But we saw that game against Marquette. I think that performance was a little bit of a fluke. Like, I think that had just kind of an outlier game. And then the Virginia game, like, Virginia didn't miss a shot in the second half, right? I don't think Baylor's defense is what it's been in the past, but at some point, like, you would expect, instead of Virginia hitting 9 straight threes, like, maybe if they only hit 6 out of 9, then Baylor wins that game. So I'm not necessarily too worried about those losses, but I just think that we need to recalibrate a little bit what we thought this team's ceiling would be. I think they're much more like that top 15-ish kind of a team than they are a top 5 team Big 12 title threat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the conference, even we talk about Kansas, I think Kansas has flaws because I don't, like I said, when you focus on Grady Dick, I'm consistently concerned about their ability to shoot. So I just think they got to change when you got their guard play, because if you're in a close game, I got multiple guards that I can get a ball to and say, "Get me a bucket." I think the biggest thing they're lacking is they just don't have the rim protection that they've had in years past. But I love their guard play. I think, again, as long as you got great guard play, you're in every game. That's why that Marquette game was just such a surprising, and I think that's more of an anomaly than it is anything we can come to expect from Baylor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Keontae George is probably the most talented of the bunch, but he's been the least efficient so far. I do think that that's going to tick up a little bit, but again, it's some better decisions with the shot selection will be. But overall, with the way that this roster is built, like I think that you have to be fairly happy if you're Scott Drew and you're sitting here heading into Big 12 play with a 10-2 record with wins over Gonzaga and wins over UCLA on neutral courts. It is what it is.
Yeah, that Marquette result was definitely an anomaly based on the results that we've seen elsewhere thus far. What I like about Baylor is that compared to other contenders, and you used Kansas as an example, I like that it feels like Baylor does have three different guys that any given night could be the guy, whereas Kansas, like you said, if you do take away Grady Dick, which I think is easier said than done, it's going to be Jalen Wilson. It's got to be Jalen Wilson. That's no disrespect to the other guys on the Kansas team. They have plenty of good players. McCullough can get 20 any given night. Harris can pop up in and out and give you a double-double at the point guard spot. But to me, any given night, the Baylor guard can be the best player on the floor, any of those three. I don't think you can say that about really any other teams in that conference and not many others in the country. So I'm with you. Maybe a little more consistency is all it would be, but that'll come with time as Keontae George grows up a little bit, especially. Let's jump to another team that I think what I just said about Baylor, where they've got three guys who could be the best player on the floor any given night. That could apply to this team when fully healthy. I'm talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks, who have really impressed me this season. This team is way further along than I thought they would be, given that Nick Smith has been in and out of the lineup. When it comes to a resolution, I'm going to Nick Smith getting in and out of the lineup. They need a new healthcare plan because this guy, Nick Smith, man, I think he's been seeing Shaden Sharp's doctors a little too much. He's out indefinitely. He's managing that right knee. I don't know how much a knee needs management. I don't know. And I hope, I say with all seriousness, I hope the kid gets healthy. I hope he is healthy. I hope we get to see him play at whatever level that is. I love his game. If the next time we see him play is in an NBA uniform, that's awesome. I can't wait for that day. But he is the difference between this Arkansas team just being a good team and a great team. When you take what you've gotten from Anthony Black so far this season, when you take what you've gotten from Ricky Council, which I definitely didn't see coming from his previous stops in his career, I think all this team's missing is one more guy who's that next level shot creator. That's what Nick Smith could be. We just haven't gotten to see it enough yet this season. Rob, agree or disagree with that? Can this, because I guess my premise here is I don't think Arkansas can contend nationally without Nick Smith. I think Nick Smith would move the needle and get them there.
This is all I have to say, Greg. In Muss, we trust. That's all I have to say. In Muss, we trust. I think my understanding of the Nick Smith situation is it's a little bit of like a load management kind of a deal, right? Like they're just trying to make sure that this thing is not going to be something that bothers him when you get into the meat of SEC play. It's not going to be something that is bothering him when you get into March. So if it means that he's going to have to miss some time against like Bradley or UNC, like whatever, they're winning those games. I'm not that concerned about it. My big question with this team, and I think what my resolution here would be is embrace the Jordan Walsh as a center revolution. I think that if you look back at the best teams that Muss has had, he's had guys like that playing the five for him. Even when you go back to the Nevada days, right? I think that when you played one, I think Jordan Walsh is tough enough and crazy enough to be able to play the five as a freshman in a league like that. I think we saw it with remember Justin Smith, the kid that transferred there from Indiana in the 2021 season. When they moved him to the five is when Arkansas went on their big run down the stretch of the season. I think they won like 14 straight after they moved him to the five. Last season, once they moved Jalen Williams there and started playing him at the five full time, that's when they went on their big run. It's finding that perfect five man to make everything work. And if you can give me Nick Smith, Ricky Council, Anthony Black, Devo Davis, and Jordan Walsh, you give me those five, that's as switchable as you're going to find. That's as difficult to guard as you're going to find. That's as athletic as you're going to find. You have three guys that can go out there and create shit against anybody at any time. Devo Davis, if he's your fourth option, that's a pretty damn good fourth option. And you have the most athletic, aggressive junkyard dog player in college basketball in Jordan Walsh. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And if worse comes to worse, and you got to throw one of the Mitchell twins at the 5 and you got to mix things up, you got guys that can do it. You got guys that can kind of give you fouls more or less against someone like an Oscar Tshiebwe. So that's kind of where I stand at with it. But for the most part, if there's anything that we've known over the last couple of years, it's that in Muss, we trust. Field of 68.
I guess my question on that is, again, is how much of when they get into conference play, how much is their athleticism go overwhelm people when they get in the conference? I think that balances out a little bit. And then the injuries, I wonder how much that's going to affect Ricky Council. I think he needs those other guys around him to do what he's done. And it's been surprising. I mean, I'm happy for him. It's been great. But can he continue this as they get into conference play? Because he's going to have
the $1 million question, right?
Yeah, he's going to have other elite athleticism guys. And I think they've done that leading up to this. But when they get into conference play for a team it's not a great shooting team. I mean, this team doesn't shoot at the best. They're not a great shooting team. And so you're going to have to overwhelm people with bodies, and they're going to need to be healthy to do that. So, you know, they got to get Nick Smith back. I mean, he's got to be back. He's got to be healthy. And I think they'll be there in the end.
Yeah. The one thing that I will add, and then Greg, we can move on to the next team, is that I think that Trevon Brazil's injury is one of the kind of like the most disappointing that I can remember in a while, just because of one, the breakup that he had, two, the role that he plays for this team in terms of being a rim protector and being a 5-man that can pull defenses away from the basket, and three, the fact that when he's out there, then we're talking about a team that has Ricky Council, Trevon Brazil, and Jordan Walsh, who are three of the best athletes that you're going to find in college basketball. Like, they were as entertaining as any team in the country to watch. So it sucks that he's out, man. Injuries suck. Maybe get him some of that HGH that we got for
Obamacare, baby. You got to give him some Obamacare. But no, seriously, I thought his injury when he went down for a team I thought had unlimited potential. I thought that was an injury that you don't want to say it's over, but for where we thought this team could be early on, when he went down, it was like, man, I felt bad for him, and I felt bad for the team because you just couldn't replace it. I just don't think they can replace it, and I'm not going to sit here and say what they can't do, but I don't see them. Whereas before, it was like, if you would have told me to see you in Houston, we'll see them in Houston, I wouldn't have argued it. Yeah. Now I have my
one counterpoint to that is they are still, for my money, the only team in college basketball that has 3 guys and potentially 4 that could end up being first-round picks. I think Jordan Walsh, Anthony Black, and Nick Smith all end up being first-round picks. I think Ricky Council is one of those guys that goes in like the 31 to 42, like an early second rounder.
Give me the best win.
They don't really have one. San Diego State probably, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I just think when they get into conference play, we got to see. They're gonna have to make some shots. They're gonna be some adjustments being made, and we'll see. I thought the injury to Brazil, I just don't know how they overcome that.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree.
I wouldn't play the win game with Arkansas because you're right. They had Creighton, they had San Diego State, they had Oklahoma. They lose to Creighton by 3, but that was one of the best games of the season. They got the win against San Diego State in overtime. Oklahoma, I mean, it's Oklahoma. I don't love that roster, but comfortable win on a neutral is a solid win. I worry about the continuity of it, right? Like, if you're really going to play the quote unquote load management game with a guy as talented as Nick Smith, I think there are side effects of that on a college team that you would never see at the NBA level, where it's such a thing with every single franchise. And I know, like, maybe they get through that if Brazil stays healthy, but they're already thin in that regard. Right. So the sooner you can get Smith back, the more it opens up opportunities long term. All right, staying in the SEC, back to you, Rob, here. We're going to Coach Cal's Kentucky Wildcats. What's their resolution?
I think their resolution is to find a way to get their head coach to realize that it is currently the year 2022. And in 2 days, it's going to be the year 2023. And it is not, as we speak, the year 2009 anymore. You cannot coach the way that you want to coach in 2009 in 2023. You cannot sit here and pretend like this small ball revolution hasn't happened. You cannot run the same stuff, the same basic sets that you were running 14 years ago. Now you just can't do it. You can't. The coaching is too good. The scouting is too good. The players are too good. You don't have an elite level of talent, right? I think one of the things that kind of got underrated in Cal's time at Memphis and his early years at Kentucky was his ability to make rosters fit together and get guys to buy in and accept roles, right? I think that is his foremost skill set as a coach, right? He can get the players that he wanted to get, and he got them to buy into what he was asking them to do, right? He had that 2015 team. He had guys that were 5-star. He had Devin Booker coming off the bench and happy playing 14 minutes a night or whatever it was. His ability to kind of keep everybody together was elite. He's not a guy that can necessarily coach you into wins when you don't have elite pieces around him. So I guess the biggest thing is, and I'm going to steal something from a guy on our football side, Michael Felder, is like, he's got to learn how to cook, right? He's got all the groceries. He's got all the ingredients. He's got all the food. He's got the prime steaks. He doesn't know how to cook them. He doesn't know how to put it all together. He doesn't know how to take these pieces and make it work on a basketball court. And so I talked to someone a couple summers ago about like this very specific topic, right? And one of the things that this person told me is that like Cal's not a basketball junkie the way that other guys are basketball junkies, right? He's not a guy that's gonna sit up at night and watch NBA games until 1 o'clock in the morning. He's not the guy that's gonna stay up and watch the 10:30 Eastern time tips on TNT, right? He's not a guy that's gonna sit there and just live and breathe basketball and watch everything at every single second. He's gonna watch what he has to do, and he's gonna go home and he's gonna spend time with his family. He's gonna spend time with his wife. He's gonna do things like that, right? So I think a little bit of it is that maybe he doesn't necessarily have the ideas or the concepts, and he hasn't picked it up from anyone. I think another part of it is that his ego is too big to kind of allow him to say, okay, I need somebody to come in here and run my offense. On the Christmas gift show, I think T.O. and Goodman both said that they were going to give Kentucky John Beilein, someone that can go out there and scheme some offense, someone that had nothing to do but sit there and think about ways to create good shots for guys on the team. That's what they're missing right now. They're missing ways to get easy baskets that aren't off of turnovers and that aren't off of offensive rebounds from Oscar Tshiebwe. Because you got some of the pieces to be able to do it, man. But like, it ain't working. I hate watching them play. I do not like watching Kentucky play right now.
My question to you guys, and I know the Kentucky fan base, they're always eager to say something. For me, we talk about where's the pros? I mean, like you made the comparison to Booker and those guys. Booker, that team was loaded. Like they had dudes. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying this team has talent, but they ain't got dudes. The way
that's what I'm saying. Like,
the way you're accustomed to Kentucky team having, where they just and in fairness to Cal, you can say that maybe this year, but in past, it's like, yeah, I can go to bed early because I got mm-hmm. Bam out of Bayou. I got Devin Booker and you don't. So you can stay up all night trying to figure out how to stop these dudes. Guess what? When you wake up tomorrow, that same damn problem gonna be there. They don't have that. There's nobody other than you can scheme with some of these guys. And I said that before. They got pieces, and I think they'll have their moments. They'll make it to the tournament or whatever. But coming in off of that year, it's like they got to mix and match to get the shooting or the defense or the whatever. And they don't have those guys. There's just not a team where you're gonna look at and be like, oh man, they got how many NBA guys? I mean, literally, like how many NBA guys on this? And you can say you think not eventually, but talking about like draftable guys, like where?
It's probably, I would say, if the draft happened today and there was no NIL money incentivizing players to come back, I would say Kason probably ends up being a top 10, top 14 kind of a pick, right? And then mm-hmm. I think Oscar Tshiebwe gets drafted somewhere just because rebounding translates. And he's been too successful at the college level not to get drafted. And if he doesn't get drafted,
and you think, but where? It's not going to be first round because
no. I'm saying
exactly. So maybe he'll be a late second round pick or somebody, something. Maybe. That's it. Maybe. And that's and you're talking about, like, I give you, I'm talking about Wallace, obviously we knew but that's not considering what we've been talking about with Kentucky. That's the difference, that they just don't have those guys, and they're trying to do it through a portal, which is different when they're accustomed to be, like I said, to me, Duke has changed it. Duke's the only team. Duke beat everybody in that. It's like, hey, we taking all the top pro freshman one and done guys, and they're the only team that continue to do it. And everybody else, and I hate to say it, even Kentucky and all these other schools are having a mix and match, and they don't have enough guys. They needed another one and done freshman or two on his roster, and it's not there.
Yeah,
Rob,
yeah,
I want to ask you. I want to ask you this just quickly, Rob, because I actually think in general the conversation about Cal has swung a little too far. That stretch of reality a little bit for me. Like I'm not here to camp for him and say he's done a great job this year at all. But I just think in general the narrative of like, oh, this offense is so horrendous is a little too far. This is 25th best offense in the country on KenPom. They're shooting 40% as a team from three, and this is a team that starts Xavier Wheeler, Jacob Toppin, and Oscar Shibwe. Like how those guys aren't shooters. So how do we square the fact that maybe metrics wise this offense actually isn't looking that bad with like what our eyes are telling us with this team?
Okay,
because sometimes numbers can lie, man. That's why you can argue all you want. That's why I never bring in analyticals, most of the stuff analytically in, because you can flip the analytics to say whatever you think it needs to say. So yeah, you can read that off, but when you watch them play, you're like, something's wrong.
And part of it is like how many points do they get off of offensive rebounds, right? How much of that offense that they get is a result of Oscar Shibwe getting to the offensive glass and laying a ball in after he gets a missed rebound. And I'll also say this. If you look at the teams that they've beaten that are high major opponents, right? They scored 77 points in 84 possessions in a double overtime loss to Michigan State. They scored 72 points in 76 possessions against a Gonzaga team that is not known for being a defensive juggernaut. They scored 53 points in 67 possessions against UCLA in a game where they had 2 points in the final 8 minutes of that game. They scored 60 points in 59 possessions against the Bellarmine team that beat Louisville, but is still like a mid-major program. They scored 73 points in 71 possessions against your Michigan Wolverines, and against Yale, they scored 69 points nice in 60 possessions. Like, I think some of the numbers that they've put up have been a result of inflated performances against some lower level teams, right?
That's what it's been. That's where those numbers have come from.
Some of it is that.
I think a lot of it is they shoot 40% come conference play. When you play a lot of these non-conference schedules, you can make it matters if I go 6 of 8 against, and I don't even want to pick a team off their schedule, but just some Ivy League school or whatever, and then all of a sudden now when it matters, I got to play against UCLA or somebody else, and I go 1 for 5 or 1 for 4. Like at some point, that's what they're going to end up playing here.
But maybe I'm just colored by the Michigan game, but like 9 for 15 against Michigan, they win that game. I thought their offense was actually pretty good. I know they were really bad against UCLA. I know that Gonzaga was really never a close game, so it's hard to even count that. Michigan State, I think they turned the ball over a lot and had quite a few Xavier Wheeler questionable moments, if I'm remembering correctly, back to the Champions Classic. But I don't know. I think it's more in the middle than it is the far end of the spectrum of like, Cal's got no answers. To me, if there was an answer.
No. And I'm with you on that. I'm not bashing them. Yeah. I think it's somewhere in the middle of that. My only thing was what we expected of this team coming into this season off of last year. I don't see them reaching that. I'm not on because next year, when you get a couple of those dudes in there next year, then I think you'll get the mixture of the veteran guys with this number one class coming in. Total different conversation. I'm talking about just this team and the parts to this team. He's going to have some dudes in there coming in there next year that he can get a ball to and go boogie and do their thing. And I'm thinking, and that's going to change a lot because it's going to be at the end of the day, I got options of guys I can give it to, a la Baylor type situation. You don't. Let's see what happens then.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway, and then we can move on after this, is that Cal is good enough to make Kentucky be good when he doesn't have elite talent. He's not good enough to make Kentucky be great when he doesn't have elite talent. When he doesn't have the best players on the floor, he's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and be able to win you a national championship the way that I don't know, like some of these, I think Rick Pitino, how many pros were on the Louisville team that won it in 2013? I think you look at some teams like Jay Wright, how many times did he have, well, maybe that's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying? Like he's not a guy. He's he's going to be at his best when he has the best players on the floor, and because his best strength as a coach is his ability to get everybody to buy in and accept roles, even if it's not necessarily being the number one guy for a top 10 pick. I just don't think he's someone that can win without elite players. But I will say this.
But I don't think anybody is. Big Blue Nation.
I'm so thankful RC came in with that. Like, yeah, no shit if you don't have the best players on the floor.
Like,
there's not many guys who can coach.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying. I think yeah, no, I trust me.
But I will say this: if you want to be fair with your criticism of that could be if you wanted to be critical of Cal, that's the only thing I think is fair criticism. Is I think it's you got to get the best out of whatever this team is, like these different parts and getting the best. If you want to say that, I can be cool with. But I just think he's at the mercy of what he has this year. I don't think it's any less of less because I think that
here's where I'd push back. Here's where I'd push back is that I think that there is enough on this roster to be more than what you've been offensively, to be more than what you've been so far this season. I think Oscar Tshiebwe, like he's the reigning national player of the year, and he may not be a go-to guy, but he's someone that should be better than what he's been. I think this reliance on Jacob Toppin is something that's been frustrating to me, right? I think the fact that we've struggled to see lineups where you get Antonio Reeves and CJ Frederick on the floor at the same time has been frustrating to me. I think
because they can't guard anybody.
Well, look, you know what? At some point, you got to find a way to be able to win basketball games, right? Like, what do you want me to do?
All right, let's for the sake of producer Trevor and our viewers everywhere, let's move on. I do feel like the three of us collectively could probably talk Kentucky for 3 hours on the side, so maybe we'll reconvene for that. Let's go to the ACC. We've got 3 teams left here. RC's got 2 of them. I've got 1 of them sandwiched in between. We're gonna start though with the Miami Hurricanes. RC, what's your resolution?
I wish I could get some. They just need height. I don't know if you guys have watched them yet. Amir's giving them a toughness that the rumor was of going into last year, you can just be physical and kind of almost punk them. That's not the case. I mean, they answered the call against UVA. UVA was one of those teams. I watched them when both games last year. They felt like physically they could just manhandle Miami. Not the case this year. They don't have size. They can score it. They get after you defensively. They create turnovers. They're a matchup nightmare. Like I said this before, Jordan Miller is the one guy people aren't talking about. And, I mean, you're thinking about Nigel Pack. You're talking about Isaiah Wall.
We're talking about him. We had him on the show.
Listen.
We had him on the show 2 nights ago.
Legit, he can do it. I think he's the best player nationally not the best, but he's one of the best players nationally. People just aren't talking about it. But this team's going to be a tough out. Like, it wouldn't surprise me right now going forward. I think there's teams that could bother them because of their just overall size of that team. But, man, they're going to be a tough-ass out for you guys. I mean, for anybody going forward. I wish they had size. I mean, height. I would say height because Amir's a big dude, but they're going to be a tough out. They got scoring. They got a lot of guys that can do it. I think Nigel Pack can be even better offensively for him. But being the 3rd guy or 4th guy offensively on that group, he fits in fine. I've liked what I've seen from them so far. They're on an 8-game win streak. Their only loss was to Maryland. I mean, they'll be a tough out. Rebounding is always a concern, for them. But that's just their style of play. All those guys are bought into it, and they just fly around and make plays.
Hey, RC, let me ask you this: where would you have Isaiah Wong in the ACC Player of the Year conversation right now?
I don't know why he's not in the front. I mean, who's been better?
That's what I was getting
who's been better? I mean, who's been better?
No one.
I mean, he's been hands down the most. He's been the most consistent from the beginning. I mean, I think he's been the most consistent player from the beginning. So, I like the team. I know it's early. We're about to get into conference play. They're already 3-0. A couple of teams hadn't played much more than 1 game already. They got 3 wins already. They're sitting pretty. I like what I see out of them. I think they're like a scrappy team. They get after, they force turnovers. Their lack of size is a concern, and when the game slows down, they'll make people in this league, and every league will make adjustments to them. But I love what this. They got too many playmakers. They're a tough team to stop.
Let me tell you this, RC, because here's what I think my resolution for this team would be: is to go to Nigel Pack, go take his life wallet, get all those $400,000 out of it, and throw him back in the bank and say, you don't get this till you start playing like the guy that was at Kansas State, right? At Kansas State last year, he shot 43.6% from three. The year before that, as a freshman, he shot 40.5% from three. He was 45.5% from the floor last season. He was over 40% from the floor as a freshman. This year, he's shooting 39% from the floor and 32% from three. This is why you don't give the guys NIL money before they prove it, right?
But I think I'm hoping
400K for 11 points a game, 400K for shooting 30% from the floor against high major competition. Nigel, man, come on! I know you got that life wallet pack. You got that 400K. You got to be better. Hey, look, I'll tell you this: if Nigel Pack put up the numbers and shot at the clip, I'm not going to say put up the numbers because he's not going to get the same number of shots. But if he shot at the clip
percentage-wise
that he shot last year, if he had those same percentages, if he's a 40+% 3-point shooter, if he's as effective as he was off the bounce last year, like we're talking about Miami, like legitimately.
They're Baylor. They're Baylor every year. They're Baylor in the past. They're Baylor.
Yes.
The three-headed monster lineup, they're Baylor. They would be a team where we're like, good luck trying to guard them.
But they got the four-man. Like that's the thing that Baylor doesn't have. They got the four-man.
They would be the Baylor. I agree with you. I'm hoping he figures it out. But again, he put the bullseye on his back when he got that bag, and I'm not faulting him for it. But he's going to have to be better if they want to win the league. He's going to have to be better.
I love that Rob's just out here revolutionizing NIL contracts by the second. I mean, let's get some incentive-based structure. Yeah, I like it.
2%.
I like it. I'm going to save a question I have for RC based on his Miami analysis until I get to my next team here, which is the North Carolina Tar Heels. And as far as a revolution goes with North Carolina, I think this is a New Year's resolution that we all should we subscribe to. I think everybody across the world could subscribe to this. I think the UNC should try very hard to reconnect with an old friend. You know, sometimes we grow up, sometimes distance gets in between us and you forget those that matter. Maybe you go years without talking to someone. Maybe you don't see someone you would see, I don't know, twice, maybe 3 times a year as often as you usually do. I think Carolina needs to meet up with their old pal, Coach K. Because I think the moment that they saw Coach K last season, that swung their whole season. They were this mediocre team that just had all the talent in the world, but needed a fire lit under them to decide we want to actually go beat people. Coach K made them want to do that. This year, from what I've seen with North Carolina, it's just, do they want to show up? And I know that's oversimplifying it. I know there's larger issues than that are actually, statistically analyzable. But man, I have a hard time watching the way that backcourt plays, the way Armando Bacot has played in games prior to the Michigan game, which, by the way, they were down 7 points early to Michigan before Hunter Dickinson decided to throw an elbow, and everybody kind of looked at each other and tightened up their belt and said, let's go. So I think if they could just get a run in with Coach K, maybe that would fix everything. What do you think, RC?
I mean, to your point, I think we're all saying the same with these guys. They just didn't handle the pat on the back early in the year well, and then they handled the kick in the butt better. When everybody's telling them what they're not, they're soft, they're selfish, they're this, they're that, they're just better. But I will say this. I thought some of the criticism was an overreaction, and I said that earlier coming out of that break. I think it's tough going west. They were up against Iowa State. They lost a full overtime game to Alabama. You go on the road losing early in the Big Ten ACC, challenge at Indiana. It's not a bad thing. And then losing at Virginia Tech, traveling, all of those are road games, and that stretch was just a bit much. They've gotten back. They've regrouped. They are a team that needs to play with an edge, though. When they get complacent, I think they'll slip up. But give them credit. They came back, got 2 Big Ten wins against 2, solid teams, and they got to come now and get in the conference play, and we'll see how it goes. But it's talent-wise, we can't question it because we've seen it just a flip, just night and day, just that quickly. We've never seen a number 1 team drop 4 straight, but you can understand it. And then they turn right back around now, and they're playing good ball. They're going to be a tough out.
Greg, I think we're starting to see here why RC is going to end up being a media superstar here. Because you know what he's perfected? He's perfected the art of, as soon as a team has their bounce back, saying that all the criticism was an overreaction. Right?
No.
Oh, look, all that criticism in North Carolina was an overreaction. All of this was an overreaction. Look, it's so hard for them to go west. Hey, RC, you know who had no problem going west? You know who had no problem with Alabama? You know who had no problem with Iowa State? Right there.
Okay.
Right there.
All right.
No, in all seriousness, I really wanted North Carolina for the there he goes for the resolution, because I was going to say that my New Year's resolution is to send Caleb Love every single negative thing that has ever been said about him on the internet, because that dude checks his mentions and checks the comments and checks the sections that you're not supposed to read as a public figure more than anybody else. Always replies to him, and as soon as he does, boom, he becomes a new player. Boom, this team becomes a different team. So, yeah, that's all I need, man. You just got to – all the criticism – if you're a North Carolina fan and you have a criticism of anybody on that roster, tag them. Normally, I say never tag the players. Tag them, because North Carolina is better when you say that they suck.
They are. They don't handle the pats on the back well. But when you challenge them, you got your hands up.
And you know what? It's frustrating if you're a North Carolina fan, but I like that fact about them, that they are – like, there's very much this like, fuck you, watch this element to them, right? And I love teams that have that fuck you, watch this element. But the problem is they're like totally different until they get to that point. They're just not very good until they get to that point. And then once they do, it's like, oh shit, okay, we shouldn't have poked the bear.
Yeah, I hear your point about like, oh, I kind of like that, especially by the time you get to March. I think it's easy to say you kind of like that because they're going to do it every time on paper, in theory, right? They'll show up every game. But I would just like it more if they did it more. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw there was a feature on Hubert Davis that came out a couple weeks ago that had some in-depth information on him bringing back an old Smith era policy where no one's allowed to use profanity within the walls of the North Carolina basketball facilities. Less than 24 hours after that feature article was published, Armando Bacot took to Instagram and said, quote, "Fuck it, I'm a die lit." So I just want to throw that out there. That's the type of reporting that you come to the Field of 68 After Dark for. I will continue to analyze North Carolina's ability to use profanity throughout the year. RC, my one question to you, and then we can move to the final team on our list. Given all of North Carolina's ups and downs, and given the questions we have around will they show up tonight or not, would you put Miami ahead of them as far as ACC title contenders this season?
I think it's fair to say, obviously, Miami's been more consistent. I can see it. But again, how do you can't doubt a team that's made the Final Four run that they have. You can say what you want. And I said that, I'm going back at Rob. I said that right after the Virginia Tech game, and I called it then. I was like, man, listen, because matter of fact, even on the show one time, because I questioned, look at all the teams that go west. When they come back east, they're going to struggle. And we even said Purdue didn't, but I was like, yeah, Purdue barely won at Florida State. It was like a 5-point game, but no, I mean, it's doable. I mean, Miami's a good team. They're legit. I mean, they got scores, they got dudes. They're efficient. The only the problem they're going to have is just the size and length of, how Carolina play. A lot of that will be, with Armando. He's a handful inside. We'll see. And then the other kid I want to see more of them is how effective or how quickly does Jalen Washington come along. Like, he's another guy that can really shoot it. I've seen him before. He can really shoot it, but again, coming off multiple ACL injuries from high school and then finally getting cleared to play. Let's see how he progresses now and what he looks like as they get in the conference play.
Yeah, so I do think that Miami's probably the favorite to win the league right now. Part of that is because they play Louisville twice, and they play Boston College twice, and they play Florida State twice. Part of that is because they only play Virginia once, and they already got Virginia. And part of it is just because, like, I think that they have they have the best. Yeah, they have the best backcourt. They have a coach that just kind of says, like, okay, you guys can rock. They got the foreman that kind of opens everything up, and we still haven't seen Life Wallet Nigel Pack yet. We've seen Broke Wallet Nigel Pack so far. So.
Wow. Well, no, we're gonna see. I'm with you on that. We're gonna see what he does. If he plays the way he's played in the past, then they're gonna be a tough out. But as we know, it's so crazy in this league. I would have never thought BC would have beat Virginia Tech when they did the way BC.
I can't believe after all the shit that I talked to you about BC losing to Maine.
Oh, I started to.
BC
I wanted to call
New Hampshire. I can't believe you did not say anything, man. I was sitting there the whole night waiting for my phone, waiting for the text. I'm like,
I was going to talk so much shit to you, but I said, nah, I'm going to leave him alone. I ain't even going to mess with him.
Somebody make sure that we clip Rob calling the Miami backcourt the best backcourt in this league and send that to Caleb Love, please.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, that's
do
what he
that.
loves.
Do that. And
Yeah.
do that. And then my North Carolina title future might actually pay off.
There we go. All right. Final team on our list. The final New Year's resolution of the episode goes to Tony Bennett and the Virginia Cavaliers. RC, what is it?
Shooting. I just pray and wish that they can just continue to make shots. And as great of a start as they started with shooting the ball, again, they're another team that their backcourt was shooting. I mean, Kihei Clark and Reese Beekman were shooting mid-40s from three. And I'm like, that ain't them. That's not them being able to sustain it. And now, you know, Kihei's coming back to earth. He's down in the 30s now, 7 or so. Can he sustain that 38% from three? Reese Beekman's got to get healthy. Like, he's got to be healthy for them. I mean, he's their guy. He's got to be healthy. I don't know. I mean, how far off will their shooting be? I mean, they started out 8-0. Now they're on a 2-game losing streak. You know, they got Albany tomorrow. I'm calling their game tomorrow against Albany. You know, obviously they're expected to win, but where is the consistent shooting going to come from that team? I don't know. If it's McNeely, I like Van der Plas. I think he's been good, but for him, he's not defensively. That DeAndre Hunter, that Mamadi, that athletic, mobile guy helped them be much better defensively, and they just don't have the consistent shooting. Like, this was a team a year ago that would go 10 minutes without making shots, and I think that's the biggest draw. That's the only real negative you can have. Losing to Houston, losing at Miami. They're not bad losses why you got to go home and be like, what the hell? You know, particularly Houston at home. I mean, Reese Beekman was banged up. You know, those are 2 top 20 teams in the country that they lost to. They'll regroup, but I just worry long term of where is the shot making going to come from this group? I
don't trust them offensively. That's my biggest issue. I said it after the Houston game. I said it before the Miami loss. Like, you put up 55 against James Madison, I got questions. You struggle, you score 62 against Florida State, I got questions. You know, I think that they are better than they were a year ago significantly, because a lot of those guys have bought in and Reese Beekman made the leap. But I also think that a win over Baylor, a win over Illinois, and then the win at Michigan, we all kind of went like, oh, wow, Virginia's back, without actually kind of getting to the nitty gritty and saying, yeah, they're going to be really good, but like, they don't have killers. You look at their best teams. They won the title. Ty Jerome was a killer. Kyle Guy never missed a big shot. DeAndre Hunter was a stud top 5 pick. The years they won the ACC was with like a Malcolm Brogdon, who was 23 years old and a 3-time first-team All-ACC player. A guy like Joe Harris, right? Guys like Anthony Gill that played 4 years, 5 years, and are still playing at an incredibly high level overseas. Like, those really, really good high-level All-ACC professional basketball caliber players. I don't know who on this team right now you can look at and kind of talk about in that same kind of context.
NBA, no. I mean, you're right, but those were NBA guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had NBA guys. They don't have that on this team. What they have is a bunch of experience. I think Jay Gardner's got to get the ball more. I mean, but it's not going to be the typical way. I mean, his percentages wise, he doesn't get enough touches to me. So when things break down, playoff for him maybe more in the mid post than he is, but he's undersized as well. He's only like 6'6", 6'7", playing at 4. So again, they're the pace doesn't bother me. I think it bothers everyone else, because you play Virginia, they're going to control tempo and pace.
Like
you can't speed them up because they got 2 point guards. But like you said, their inability to. I mean, like Reese Beekman shooting 43% from 3. That's not who he is. It's more about him not taking bad shots, making one or two, maybe making one a game. It's probably what he's at right now. I think he got 9 on the year. Kihei is starting to dip a little bit offensively. He's a heck of a player. That's just their strength. They're going to need Van der Plas to consistently make shots, and they're going to have to get McNeely, the freshman, coming in.
You know what it is? I think to put a ball in it, I think we're saying the same thing here, RC, is that they don't have that lead guy, right? Like, they don't have the superstar. They have great complementary pieces. I love Reese Beekman. I think he's going to be a guy that ends up playing 10 years in the NBA. I would probably take him as like somewhere in the 20s, right? I think he's a first-round pick. I think he's a really good player that's going to play a role in the NBA for a long time, right? I love Kihei as a college player. I think he's the quintessential like college point guard, just a pest that can create stuff offensively. I think Ben Vanderplas is a good role player. I think Jaden Gardner is a little bit of a better role player, right? I like Armand Franklin as like your third option offensively. They don't have a guy that is your superstar. And I think that kind of caps what your ceiling can be. The pace stuff is just something people use to knock them. It's like something on a recruiting trail. Like they're when they're at their best, they're a top 5 offensive efficiency team. And part of playing at that pace takes you out of any kind of rhythm that you have. Like they're going to force you to play their style, and their style is a difficult one to play. It just is what it is. I'm not worried about that.
And most of the pace you're talking about is people doing that to them. Most of the pace you're talking about is people doing them because they're like, all right, we got to back up. You know, we got to worry about them running there, move a blocker and cutting in the paint. So let's just sit back. Teams are slowing the pace down. They're averaging 70 a game. You think of Virginia, people want to knock them as a recruiter, like you said, playing in the 50s, but it's other teams saying, look, we want to slow the game down because we don't want to guard all that crap. But they don't have dudes. I mean, it's just, you know, they don't have that pro like they're accustomed to having. And I think it'll catch up with them in the end.
And
but
look, if we're being honest, if you look at this team, look at all those pieces, and you say at the end of the day, this is going to be a top 4 seed, going to be a team that finishes minimum top 3 in the ACC, and is going to have a chance to get to the second week in the tournament, I think that you could say Tony Bennett got the most out of the pieces on this roster. Is that fair?
Check. I agree with it all.
It's fair, but doesn't that just leave a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth when this team was like second in the poll like a month ago? Like, are we just writing that off? Saying it was crazy?
That's why you don't listen to the Goodman top 25, because he's a fucking
I need the Dauster top 25. That's right.
I would if they had an athletic. They need somebody to step up big. At least a consistency. It's got to be Armand Franklin. If Franklin can consistently get up and he's shooting 39, if he can just consistently hover around 39, 40% from 3 all year, I like their chances. But the only other thing is defensively. As much as I like Vanderplas, he's not the athletic, not just lottery picking DeAndre Hunter. Yeah, that versatility at that 4th spot was a game changer for them. That they can throw Shedrick and Kafar. They can throw those guys at you at the 5 spot and just rotate it. But now they're kind of limited with Jaden Gardner and Vanderplas at the 4.
They're guys that
can't switch on the ball.
They're limited. Like they're not an elite defensive team. They're good. No. They're good. They're not an elite defensive team. They're fine offensively. They're not an elite offensive team.
Yeah. I think this next stretch is going to be critical for them. After one more bye game, they end up with at Georgia Tech, at Pittsburgh, and then home to Syracuse. To me, if they're going to be any sort of force to be reckoned with in the ACC, you got to sweep those games. We'll see. I don't know that I would bet them to do that right now, given the way they've played the last 2, couple on the road, followed by that 2-3 zone. We'll see if the shots hold up. All right, boys.
Tony Bennett against the 2-3 zone is the best bet that you could ever make. He's the one that figured out how to beat it. No, seriously, what they do is they put their point guard at the high post. They wait. They make the center guard him. Then they have the guy dribble it out. They pull it out in the basket, and it fucks everything up. Tony Bennett against the 2-3 zone is the best bet that you can make.
Remind me of that in 2 weeks, Rob, please. Just
set the notification in your phone right now.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. This was very fun, gentlemen. I wish you a very happy, healthy, successful 2023 as we head into the new year. And same to all of our viewers out there. You can see us on the Field of 68 YouTube channel. Click subscribe if you are over there. You can listen to us on the Sirius XM app. We are brought to you by Bet Rivers. Go to fieldof68.shop to get all of the shirts, every single one that Rob held up in this episode. We got some holiday codes going right now. Promo code HOLIDAY now through the new year, which you've only got a couple hours left to take advantage of that. That gets you 20% off in the Field of 68 shop. For Rob Dauster, for Randolph Childress, my name is Greg Waddell, and we'll see you next time on the Field of